Part 65. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 641. Did all the major powers at that time build such a palace? Is she narrow-minded? This is not where the emperor lived but where the big family lived at that time. Our family only rules 3/5 of the continent, the man explained. Xianxia understood that the 3/5 of the continent ruled by the Ji family was the territory currently occupied by Lingxiu, and the other 2/5 should be the base of the demon world. Did you divide the territory with the demon cultivator? Xianxia asked. The man nodded. Yes, our family asked all spiritual cultivators to surrender at that time, but those demonic cultivators were unwilling to surrender. Later, considering that the cultivation methods were different, even if they surrendered, they would still be a hidden danger, so the two sides sat down. We came down to negotiate and decided to divide the continent into two, each occupying one side. Because the number of demon cultivators was much smaller than that of spiritual cultivators, the territory was divided, and the layout of the 9UN continent was thus decided. It became clear to Xianxia. It turned out that spiritual cultivation and demonic cultivation were originally inseparable from each other. They were separated by the eyes of the powerful and charming, and they were not opposed to each other from the beginning. The demon cultivator and the spiritual cultivator have since been divided into two parts, and the continent has also been divided into the demon world and the spiritual world. The powerful men from the two parties have joined forces to build a gap at the border to isolate the two worlds. The original intention is that they can live in peace and harmony. From then on, there is a demon king in the demon world, and a human emperor in the spiritual world. It is clear to Xianxia that the Ji family is the family of the human emperor in the spiritual world, or the human emperor comes from the Ji family. But things are not that simple. There is no bottom line for human greed. After the demon spirits were divided into two factions, they did not calm down. On the contrary, because they looked down on each other's cultivation power, the conflict became more and more serious, and no one was convinced by the other. Especially after the number of people in the demon world increased, they were not satisfied that the territory was smaller than the spirit world. They thought it was unfair when the territory was divided, and they wanted to divide the continent evenly. The people in the spirit world did not agree, so the demon world launched a war. It was the first time that the demon world had a war. The first war between demon spirits ended in a disastrous defeat for the demon world, but the spirit world consumed a lot of money, and they all recuperated separately. Since then, the relationship between demon spirits has been like fire and water. Such a war will happen once every 10,000 years, and every year each time the spirit world ended in victory, but the demon world also became stronger and stronger in each battle, and the price paid by each other was high. Xianxia understands that there is no absolute winner in a war, and everyone will pay a heavy price. The light in his apricot eyes flickered, and it turned out that the higher continent was not peaceful either, and was even crueler than the lower continent. The lower continent is just a war between two countries, while the high continent is a war between demons, which involves the entire continent. To describe the state of the other world she lives in, it is a world war. Later, the war lasted longer, until 30,000 years ago, something happened on the mainland that made all the monks despair, the man said with a long sigh. Xianxia is curious about what could be bigger than the battle between demons and spirits. It can be described as despair. The man said, the Tianmen on the way to the ninth heaven for monks has disappeared. It is the only passage for monks to go to the ninth heaven. Whether it is magic cultivation or spiritual cultivation, they have to go to the ninth heaven from here. Without the Tianmen, even if the cultivation level is after reaching the peak of transcending tribulation, one cannot leave the 9UN continent and go to the 9 heavens. However, the lifespan of high-level mainlanders is limited. After their lifespan is exhausted, they can only helplessly return to nothingness. Xianxia didn't expect that the despairing thing was the disappearance of Tianmen. Thinking about it, that monk's ultimate goal was not to go to the ninth heaven. Now I tell you that it's useless no matter how hard you try. Tianmen is gone. The only way to go is to the ninth heaven. The road to heaven is blocked. Why did Tianmen disappear? Yan Xianluo asked. Master Shi said that they all guessed that someone from Zhikongtian had sealed it, and Yu Xianluo had a feeling in her heart that the man in front of her must know the truth. The man glanced at her and said, "It's because some greedy people offended the interests of Zhikongtian, and the gate of heaven was sealed by the people of Zhikongtian." Yan Xianluo looked at the man in shock. Master Shi and the others guessed that the Tianmen was sealed by people from the Zhikongtian. However, they did not expect that it was because some greedy people angered the Zhikongtian. Who were they? What did you do to make the people of Zhikongtian so angry? Who are they you are talking about? Yan Xianluo asked again. The man looked up at the sky. It was almost evening at this time, and the sky was a little dark, which reflected the man's mood at this time. Some people between the nine heavens and the higher continent. Yan Xianluo was stunned. The man's words immediately reminded her of the person she met when she was separated from the soul. She felt that that person was not from Zhikongtian. Now she knew that there was such a place, and the place where that person was not. Is it the place between the nine heavens and the higher continent that the man mentioned? Could it be that you were from there in your last life? But how come the spiritual consciousness photos of the senior brothers are everywhere, both in the lower continents and in the higher continents? What is that place? Where is it? Yan Xianluo asked again. If she knew where it was, could she know it in advance and make some preparations? She didn't think that the man would let her go, but she was plotted by her and had to stop for a while. She must take advantage of this time to become stronger. The man looked at her and said, "If you weren't here now, you wouldn't know these things. Heaven has its own rules. It's not impossible for us to break them, but the difficulty is beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. Our family, you paid the price of genocide to achieve this. This place has become a place that is not bound by the law of heaven. Therefore, you can know some information that only people with powerful cultivation can know. But you cannot tell anyone after you leave here. As long as you exit, you will definitely be punished by heaven, remember." Yan Xianluo is not surprised that she cannot know this information now. After all, she has been told things she cannot know many times since she came back from the soul. Is she surprised that the rules of heaven can also be broken? Although the price is too high, it also means that nothing is absolute. Even if you are desperate, you can still seek a glimmer of hope from heaven. I understand. Well, am I lucky or not? Yan Xianluo looked at the man and asked. The man naturally understood the meaning of her words, but he did not fall into her trap, and continued, "There is an existence between the nine heavens and the higher continent. This place can only be known by those who have reached the level of transcending tribulation. You will be informed. But it is difficult to go there. It is not only possible to go there if you are talented enough, but you also need to be recommended and accepted by the people there." The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 642. Yu Xianluo is clear, which means that it is controlled by various forces, and no one from the higher continent can enter without their permission. At that time, if someone from any family in the high continent was there, it would be an extremely honorable thing. It means that in the future, if someone in the family breaks through the tribulation cultivation level, they can go there. After all, that is the most promising place to go to the nine heavens. Therefore, we call it Yunzongtian. Yu Xianluo was stunned for a moment. Yunzongtian. Does it have anything to do with Yun's Hang Palace? What is the relationship between Yunzongtian and Yun's Hang Palace? Yan Xianluo is a person who will ask questions when she has doubts in her heart. Besides, she only knows this one place that is not controlled by heaven, so she naturally has to cherish it. Opportunity to learn about Zhiyuan continent. The man was stunned. What kind of power is Xuanhuan Palace? He actually didn't know about Xuanhuan Palace. Yan Xiongluo immediately understood that Xuanhuan Palace was a force that appeared after the disappearance of the human emperor. Xuanhuan Palace is built on the road to Zhekongtian. The spiritual energy there is the most dense place in the mainland. Only people with God-level cultivation can enter, and those under 50 years old are required to break through to God-level cultivation. It is the place where the spiritual energy is now. The most powerful forces in the world are proud to be in Xuanhuan Palace, but they don't care about the trivial matters in the continent and only interfere in some key matters, Yuan Xiongluo explained briefly. The man narrowed his eyes and said, "It seems that Xuanhuan Palace is a force that emerged within the past 30,000 years. Judging from the name, it should be related to Yun Zhongtian." Yan Xiongluo also had this suspicion, otherwise why would the names be so similar? Although the historical records did not record the time when Xuanhuan Palace appeared, but now after the man's narration, she no longer believed in the mainland historical records. "Do you also want to go to Xuanhuan Palace?" the man suddenly asked. Yan Xiongluo shook her head. "Zhekong has already rejected Xuanhuan Palace's invitation, and I don't want to go either." She didn't say that the demigod Wei Lan, who probably had the same bloodline as her, wanted her to go to Xuanhuan Palace, but she refused and just said she didn't want to go. Looking at the man, he only knows what happened 30,000 years ago, and he doesn't know what happened after that, so he won't say anything to trouble him. The man nodded and said, "It's right not to go. Although I don't know Xuanhuan Palace, as long as it's related to those people, it's not a good place to go. Those people are cruel and ruthless, and you are too weak now, especially Zheshong, whose surname is Ji. Those people would rather kill him by mistake than let him go. Is there anything else in the Ji family that they are afraid of?" Yan Xiongluo was very confused. After all, the Ji family had been exterminated. Even if Ji Zheshong was there now, he couldn't go against the entire Yun Shangtian, right? Why wouldn't they let Ji Zheshong go? "Let's talk about the Ji family," the man sighed. Yan Xiongluo knew that the main thing was finally coming to light. "You said that the Ji family that people in Zhuyan continent know now is just the Xuanhuan family. The Ji family has the powerful Xuanhuan technique Ji Yin, right?" Yan Xiongluo nodded. "That's true, but people don't dare to talk about the Ji family, as if they are afraid of something." Yan Xiongluo guessed that she was afraid of people who would harm the Ji family. The man sneered, "Just be afraid." Then he added, "You don't think they are afraid of the people who caused the Ji family to be like this, do you?" Yan Xiongluo really thought so, but since he asked, it was definitely not the reason. "Isn't it?" Yan Xiongluo asked doubtfully. The man shook his head. "No, not everyone knows about the existence of those people. Only those who have reached the level of transcending tribulation can know. Their fear of the Ji family is an instinct. If you ask them what they are specifically afraid of the Ji family, they themselves will know it. I don't know, but every time I mention the Ji family, I feel a sense of fear from the bottom of my heart. In fact, it should be a sense of awe." Yan Xiongluo's apricot eyes suddenly widened. The Ji family has been destroyed for 30,000 years. Why does she still feel awe just by mentioning it? Why didn't she? Actually, the reason is very simple, it's just that they don't know it now. The man's expression changed again and again, and it was obvious that his mood fluctuated greatly. The reason is simple? Yan Xiongluo was really curious about the Ji family. "Let me tell you from the beginning, the ancestors of the Ji family were once the strongest in the Ninefold continent. They stood out in the Continental Hegemony War and established the largest force in the Ninefold. Later, they unified the spiritual world and became the human emperor of the spiritual world. Here it was the imperial city of Zhuyan continent at that time." The man stood up at this point. Yan Xiongluo also stood up. The man pointed to the distance. "Today only the imperial palace, Ji garden, and the altar on the other side are intact. The ruins you see are the inner city at that time, and were inhabited by the emperor's confidants and ministers. There are actually many buildings outside the inner city. There is an outer city, where the people of the imperial city live. All the major forces in the mainland have their strongholds here. The outer city is so big that you can't imagine it. Over the past 30,000 years, I have personally seen the outer city grow from ruins. It disappears, and now there is not even a trace. Yan Xianglue was extremely surprised. It turned out that the ruins she saw were only the inner city, and there was also a huge outer city. How glorious was the imperial city at that time! Now she understood why the palace was built so high, so big, and so grand. The human emperor comes from the Ji family. The talents and cultivation of the ancestors of the Ji family are only one aspect. There is also another important reason. The Ji family is the spiritual ruler chosen by heaven. Yu Xiangluo's heart trembled. Is the way of heaven so powerful? He looked up at the sky involuntarily. What kind of existence is heaven? The human emperor was actually chosen by heaven, so was the demon king also chosen by heaven? Since heaven has such magical powers, why not let the entire continent be under the rule of one person? Wouldn't this be able to avoid wars between demons and spirits? Tiandao chose the ancestor of the Ji family not only because of his strength, but mainly because the ancestor's soul was clean and he had the heart to be a gentleman in the world. The man's words made Yan Xianglue suddenly think that she got the gentleman's sword because she had a gentleman's heart. In an instant, it became clear to Ruanxiang that this fantasy world seems to respect the strong, but when heaven chooses people, character and conduct are the first priority. This means that a truly strong person must still have a gentleman's heart. Doesn't it mean that when the Tianmen is still there, if you want to ascend to the ninth heaven, you also need to have such a heart? When the human emperor fought the demons for the first time with spiritual cultivation, the Ji family sacrificed many powerful men to win. All the monks in the spiritual world and ordinary people who cannot cultivate are very grateful to the human emperor family for their dedication. They have made the decision that future generations of the family will never betray the Ji family and do anything bad to the family. The power of faith of so many people makes their vows very strong. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 643. Although the Ji family has been exterminated for 30,000 years, and their descendants no longer remember everything the Ji family has done for the 9UN continent, the oaths made by their ancestors are still there, and the binding force of the oaths makes them mention it. The Ji family will feel a sense of awe, but they don't know it is a sense of awe. Yan Xianglue was extremely shocked. What kind of existence was the human emperor at that time? How evil were the people of the Ji family, so that the world could respect them like this? Why did such a wicked family suffer to such an extent? Since the spiritual cultivators and ordinary people in mainland China have made such an oath, who destroyed the Ji family? The man seemed to understand Yan Xiangluo's doubts and continued, therefore, the Ji family has always ruled the spiritual world of Zhuoyuan continent, and the successive emperors of the Ji family have always maintained their original aspirations and worked hard for the peace and security of Zhuoyuan continent. But because the bloodline of the Ji family is so strong that almost every human emperor can go to the ninth heaven, which makes the people there jealous. They think it is because of the Ji family's Xuanhuan technique. They feel that there is something in the Ji family's Xuanhuan technique that can make people, as long as one obtains the Ji family's Xuanhuan technique to improve their cultivation, they can go to the ninth heaven. Therefore, a big plan was set up against the Ji family. The human emperor at that time knew it was a trap, but for the sake of the people in the world, he had no choice. The Ji family has fallen into this situation. What they don't know is that the Ji family's skills are indeed powerful, but there are no mysterious patterns that can improve people's cultivation, and they can't learn them. Even the Ji family can't learn them. How much it depends on talent, there is only one outsider who can learn it, and that is the human emperor's wife. Yu Xianglue was shocked. Can outsiders learn that Ji Yin can only be the wife of the human emperor? But he has learned it himself and has not encountered any difficulties. Could it be that Ji Zhong can still be the human emperor? Ji Zhong is the only one left in the Ji family. Mainlanders still don't remember the past. Is this possible? The most important thing is, what was Ji Zhong's mentality when he learned Ji Yin for himself? Did he already have thoughts about himself at that time? Then why do you want to break off the engagement? I am now a soul body. Although I can no longer carve or use Xuanhuan, I am still very sensitive to the Xuanhuan's aura. You have the Xuanhuan aura on your body, which comes from Ji Yin. How much have you learned? The man suddenly asked. Yu Xianglue was stunned. This man's soul power was indeed strong enough. No one in the higher continent had directly seen that he was a Xuanhuan master. She said truthfully, I have learned everything except the last part. Although the man was prepared for her excellent talent, he was still surprised by her talent. You are the first person in the Ji family's history. Yan Xianglue knew what the first person he meant was the person whose daughter-in-law of the Ji family imitated Ji Yin the most. She was a little stunned and had some doubts in her heart. Could it be that she was also a person chosen by heaven, and her talents were also given by heaven? Suddenly, she felt a little unsure. It would not be a pleasant thing if her life was controlled by heaven that she could not see, touch or even know where it was. The man continued, the reason why the Ji family is so strong is mainly because of their strong bloodline, and it is indeed related to the Ji family's Xuanhuan Kung Fu. Think about it, in a battle with the same level of cultivation, the opponent is a Xuanhuan master, and he is still very powerful. Master Xuanhuan, do you have a chance to win? He raised his hand and looked at it. Unfortunately, he was in a soul body now and could not carve or use the mysterious patterns. Everyone in the world knows that the Ji family has a powerful Xuanhuan technique, Ji Yin, but they don't know that it is the result of the efforts of generations of Ji family. The first human emperor was the original founder of Ji Yin. He devoted his life to studying the mysterious pattern skills that came out were compiled into a book. When he decided to go to the 9 heavens, he used the powerful mysterious pattern power to give Ji Yin. The mysterious pattern techniques can only be passed down among descendants of blood with strong enough talent. My wife can't learn it, and even if I get it, I can't open it. The subsequent human emperors will do the same thing before leaving, and that's how the Ji family Kung Fu Ji seal came into being. Yan Xianglue had studied Ji Yin. At that time, because it was the first time she came into contact with Xian patterns, she thought that all Xian patterns were like this. Later, after she completed her studies and saw other Xian patterns, she realized that the Ji family's Xian patterns were how strong. It was then that she realized that Ji Yin's strength was the result of the efforts of successive emperors of the Ji family. The Ji family was indeed a special family and a resilient family. But Ji Yin is the bloodline of the Ji family. Not everyone can learn it. Even those who can learn it can't learn it. However, as long as people who can learn half of it can easily crush any Xuanhuan on the mainland. Therefore, there are many powerful people in the Ji family. However, only those who can learn all the Ji seals can inherit the position of emperor. This rule is known to everyone, so those people mistakenly think that as long as they learn it, Ji Yin can go to Zhekongtian, so they set up a huge trap, which involves the safety of the entire continent. The human emperor has to sacrifice the Ji family to save the continent. Yan Xianglue turned to look at the man. Although he was a soul, he could see anger, unwillingness, and helplessness on his face. 30,000 years have passed, but it still makes him feel like this. This shows that this incident still bothers him to this day. Given the respect the people of Zhuyuan continent have for the human emperor and the Ji family, they will never do anything harmful to the Ji family and the human emperor. They believe that if they want to get Ji's seal, they must not only get rid of the human emperor but also the entire the G family. There is only one way to destroy the G family, that is, if there is a danger in the mainland that threatens the entire continent, let the G family use all the strength of the family to resist. Such a crisis cannot be achieved by simply fighting against the demon world, so I came up with the idea of the Nine Heavens barrier. Xianxia Loxing's eyes were cold. It turned out that the reason why the Nine Heavens gate disappeared was because they had done something to the Nine Heavens passage, which affected the Nine Heavens. That's why the people of the Nine Heavens sealed the heavenly gate from the Xuanhuan continent to the Nine Heavens. The people there are all capable of transcending tribulations. Many of them have reached the peak of tribulations. No matter how strong a person's cultivation is, they cannot bring about a crisis that will bring trouble to the entire G family, but the effect of joining forces is different. The barrier of the Nine Heavens cannot be broken even with the strength of the entire continent. However, it can be damaged, just a little bit. If you want to repair it, you have to pay a huge price, and this price must be borne by the human royal family. Sure enough, they worked together to destroy the Zhuangtian barrier. Although it was only a small piece, it was enough to make the people of Zhuangtian angry. Although the person who came was just a clone, he was so powerful that even the emperor could not resist. He gave the emperor 3 days' time. If the barrier cannot be repaired, there will be no need for the Nine continent to exist. The fragrance falls ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 644. Chapter 644 The Truth of Destruction, 2. Yu Xiongluo was stunned. The opponent's attack was indeed ruthless. This is a typical case of killing someone with a borrowed knife. At that time, the G family's heavenly master had already predicted the catastrophe of the G family's fate. After the incident happened, the human emperor did not hesitate and promised to repair the barrier within 3 days. However, he also made it clear that he did not ask anyone to do the thing. It was done by the people there. In order to prevent something like this from happening again, I asked the other party to seal the place separately and not allow people there to enter or exit. It is completely isolated from the Nine Heavens barrier and the Nine continent. Yan Xiongluo admired the human emperor's courage in his heart. Under such circumstances, he dared to negotiate terms with the people of Zhuangtian. The people of Zhuangtian have agreed anyone who dares to attack the barrier of Zhuangtian will not be killed and will not have an easy life, then their way to Zhuangtian will be cut off. Yan Xiongluo nodded secretly. It was cruel enough. This made them feel more uncomfortable than killing them. The human emperor gathered all the G family members and brought with him all the people who were above the level of Dao, as well as the powerful people who were above the level of Wendu under the human emperor at that time, a total of 12,000 people. Everyone. We all know that this mission is inevitable, but no one hesitates to follow the emperor to die generously because they know that they are going to protect the continent where they live and leave a living space for their families behind them. Yan Xiongluo was shocked. It turned out that the spirit world under the rule of the human emperor had such a sense of justice, which was in sharp contrast to the selfish people in the spirit world now. She could imagine the prosperous, peaceful, and happy life of people in the spirit world at that time. She once again wondered, could the Xuanhuan continent of today return to what it was then? Although the human emperor had arranged everything when he left, the people there had already been prepared. After the human emperor took his people away, they exterminated and strangled the G family, leaving no one left. At this point, the man's voice was choked up, and he obviously remembered the massacre of the G family more than 30,000 years ago. The man was too sad to say anything. Yan Xiongluo was speechless and silently accompanied the man in his sorrow. It took a while for the man to calm down. The human emperor knows that there is absolutely no chance of survival when he takes people there this time. Although the barrier is only slightly damaged, repairing it requires a lot of spiritual power, as well as the spiritual power of a strong person. Not a single person brought by the human emperor he couldn't come back. Therefore, before he left, he had prepared for the worst. After the emperor took his people away, the palace was besieged, and all the palaces were also besieged. Everyone was wearing black clothes and covering their heads. Only a pair of eyes can be seen on the face, there are no marks on the clothes, and the weapons in his hands are uniform long swords without any marks. Even so, the Ji family knew who the other party was when the siege began. The people who stayed behind in the clan received the news, and I was one of the people who stayed behind in the clan. Yan Xiongluo's eyes flashed. The person who could stay in the clan, even if he was not considered a powerful person at that time, had the strongest cultivation talent in the family. The human emperor told me before he left that if the Ji family was besieged, let me leave it alone and immediately send those who remained in the clan to various lower continents, while I would stay and guard the imperial city in another form. Yan Xiongluo knew what the other form he was talking about was his current form. At that time, the human emperor talked to me alone and asked my opinion, whether I was willing to make such a sacrifice for the family. I knew that since the human emperor came to me, it meant that I was the most suitable person. We people have been here since we were born. We have enjoyed the protection of the human emperor and the protection of our family, and have enjoyed the top power since we were born. Now that our family is in trouble, and it is a catastrophe, I have no reason to shirk it. Therefore, when the human emperor asked me at that time, I agreed without hesitation. The man's eyes are sad. Yu Xiongluo's heart was shocked again. The emperor led his entire family to die generously. Only a person with a strong heart can do that. He also made arrangements for his family before his death, which shows that he was a wise man. I still remember clearly what the human emperor said to me. From now on, you will watch for all of us as the Ji family stands up again, and how the descendants of the Ji family return here from the lower continent to create our Ji family again. The splendor of home. Although Yan Xiongluo felt sad about what happened to the Ji family, she still disagreed with the human emperor's words. How could one place have to stumble twice? Having already sacrificed almost the entire family for the sake of the people of Xuanhuan continent, do you still want the tragedy of that day 30,000 years ago to be repeated in another year after the glory created by Ji Zhong? She just thought about this idea in her heart and did not say it out loud. The man continued, in accordance with the orders of the human emperor, I sent all the outstanding descendants who stayed in the land of the Ji family with teleportation symbols to send them to various lower continents. In order to ensure that the blood of the Ji family can be left behind, everyone goes separately a continent, and then I stood alone in the empty clan land and activated the strong soul array in the clan area. This strong soul array was laid by the 38 elders of the clan and the human emperor, each using a ray of spiritual consciousness. Yes, as long as I enter the formation, they will know that the Ji family is finished. Even if they are not here, they can help me strengthen my soul. Yan Xiongluo's eyes suddenly lit up. She had heard of the soul strengthening array, but had never seen it before. She never expected that the man in front of her had experienced the soul strengthening array. It was not a pleasant feeling, especially since he was still a living person at the time and had to endure the pain of being ripped away from his body in territorial waters. I activated the soul strengthening array, and the soul body was forcibly separated from the body, and then suspended in the array to be strengthened and solidified. During this period, every dead elder would bestow their God's blessings. Me, each additional blessing from God on my soul body means that an elder has died. When the 39th blessing from God falls on my soul body, I know that the human emperor is no longer here. The man really couldn't talk anymore. It shows what kind of pain he experienced at that time, the heartbreaking pain. What pain can be more painful than personally feeling the death of each tribesman like this? Before she was 13 years old, Yan Xiongluo lived in two worlds, and the families in both worlds were not friendly families. She had seen members of two families fighting against each other for money and power, regardless of blood ties, and fathers, sons, and brothers fighting each other. This was the first time she had seen such a cohesive family. After the human emperor's divine blessing fell on my soul body, there was also a message left by the human emperor to me: Zimo, I have suffered so much for you. Believe me, the future of the G family will only be stronger. Only then did Yan Xiangluo know that the man in front of her was named Zimo. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 645. Chapter 645, The Truth of Destruction, 3. There is an indescribable feeling in my heart. What kind of torture is it for a man to watch the destruction of his family, the death of his people, and then exist alone in the state of his soul body on these ruins for more than 30,000 years? As the human emperor's voice disappeared, the strong soul formation also ended, and my soul body was expelled. When I floated away, I saw that my body was still suspended in the formation, and then the clan land was right in front of me. Disappeared. I appeared in the imperial city at the same time that the clan disappeared. At this time, the imperial city had become a ruin. People in the outer city had fled, and few people in the inner city had escaped. Killed, there were corpses and smells everywhere. The enemies were in the inner city and the palace at this time. I quickly drifted towards the palace, and there was a river of blood. There were more enemies living in the inner city. There is almost nothing left in each palace, let alone anyone with blood from the G family. Yan Xiangluo looked at the ruins in the distance and imagined the tragic scene through Zimo's description. I am floating above the palace, and the same is true inside the palace. Except for the enemy, there is no one alive. The human emperor has made arrangements. As soon as my soul body comes to the palace, it touches the protective formation of the inner city of the imperial city. It's a killing formation, and no living thing left in the inner city can escape. Only then did Yan Xiangluo realize that this was the reason why there was no trace of green on the ruins. It turns out that it was killed by the killing array and then isolated by the barrier. Therefore, for 30,000 years, not a trace of green has grown here. In fact, what the killing array kills is vitality, not only human vitality, but also animals and plants. Anything with vitality will be completely obliterated. In an instant, all the enemies in the inner city were strangled, and even the growing flowers and trees withered and died in an instant. The imperial city became quiet, without a sound, and it completely turned into a dead city. All the corpses and all traces of blood were wiped away by the formation. If it weren't for the ruins I saw, it would be as if the tragic scene I just saw had never happened. And my soul body was also rejected by the palace, and the palace gate was closed. Unless the descendants of the G family come back again, no one will go in. Yan Xiangluo looked at Zimo with pity. How did he get here in 30,000 years? From that time on, I began to live a sad and lonely life. I stood on the edge of the inner city, watching the enemies coming one after another, trying to come in to find Ji Yin. Unfortunately, those who tried failed, and instead, they were injured to varying degrees. I also learned from their mouths that the damaged parts of the barrier had been repaired. Although the man from Zhikongtian did not wipe out Zhuyuan continent, he sealed the Tianmen and prohibited people from Zhuyuan continent from returning. Go to Zhikongtian. People there can't come out, and those who come out can't go back, but their greed makes them think that this is a good opportunity. As long as they get the G seal, they don't have to send it back. I looked at them mockingly, and felt sad in my heart. They plotted against the G family, and their wish was not fulfilled even if the G family perished. Not only that, but they also lost the only way to the 9 heavens. Let the people of the entire continent bear their arbitrariness for them. The consequences of reckless behavior. At that time, I couldn't see the future of the G family. Even if the descendants of the G family come back in the future and lose the opportunity to go to the 9 heavens, how can the G family become stronger? Yan Xiangluo knew that Zimo's worry was not unnecessary, it was a fact. However, considering that the photos of his spiritual consciousness left behind by his senior brothers in his previous life were all so powerful. Presumably the human emperor's words at that time were not meant to comfort Gizmo. There must be a reason. A clone of a 9th level heavenly being can make the entire continent surrender. No matter how powerful the descendants of the G family are, what can they do? Later, there were still countless people trying to come in and look for Ji Yin, but they all failed. As time goes by, people slow down. It got a little slow, and finally no one came. Occasionally, people came just to see what the Ji family ruins were like, but no one dared to go inside again. Gizmo turned to look at Yan Xiangluo. Before you came, I was in despair. It has been 30,000 years, and the lifespan of lower-class mainlanders is only 100 years. The descendants of my G family have experienced many generations of blood inheritance, and every knew how much of the G family's strong bloodline can be maintained when their bloodline is constantly separated by the bloodline of lower-class mainlanders. Yan Xiangluo nodded as she thought of the G family in the heavenly punishment continent. Indeed, they are not very good. Among the G family's bloodline in the heavenly punishment continent, only the 9th level is strong enough. There are a few with better talents here and there, but that's only in comparison. Most people have average talents. Gizmo smiled. You're not welcome, and I can't see it. Can't you say something nice to comfort me? Yan Xiangluo rolled her eyes at him. It's been 30,000 years since I came back to Zhekong. I'll comfort you. You and the others are extremely talented, do you believe it? Gizmo nodded seriously. I don't believe it. Then why should I bother? Yan Xiangluo rolled her eyes at him again. I didn't see that you needed comfort. Gizmo stopped smiling. What kind of comfort does a desperate person need? Are you still desperate now? Yan Xiangluo asked. Zhihong is here, isn't he? He's still receiving the inheritance in the palace. Why is he still desperate? You have never seen the prosperity and glory of the Ji family, so you can't understand my current mood. Gizmo sighed. Indeed, but the bloodline of your Ji family is indeed very strong. The Ji family is the royal family of the First Empire in the heavenly punishment continent. Even if they go to the lower continent, the nobility in their bones has not been lost. Yu Xiangluo comforted Ji in the end. Zimo said. Gizmo said funnily, don't you think I don't need comfort? It's not a comfort, it's a fact. Yan Xiangluo said seriously. Gizmo didn't say anything else on this matter. Ever since Zhihong, he had seen Zhihong's nobility. That kind of nobility radiated from his bones. He knew that Zhihong's status in the lower continent should not be the same. Lo, but I didn't expect it to be royalty. Although Yan Xiangluo's words were intended to comfort him, she was right about one thing. The nobility in the Ji family's bones had not been diluted by the bloodline thousands of years ago. The moment he saw Zhihong, he seemed to see the former human emperor. For a moment, hope really rose in his heart. Don't go off track and continue talking about where those people live since they have been sealed off by Zhekongtian people. Why are you still worried that they won't let Zhekong go? Yan Xiangluo corrected the topic. Gizmo glanced at her. She was really a smart little girl. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 646. Chapter 646, Longer Life. Yun Zhongtian is in a space outside the Tianmen at the end of the road to Zhekongtian. It is a small independent world. It is a new space created on the shield of Zhekongtian for a special reason. Although it is small, the spiritual energy is extremely rich, and it belongs to the space connected between Zhuyuan continent and Zhuyuan heaven. However, you cannot go to Zhuyuan continent. If you want to go to Zhuyuan heaven, you have to ascend through the Tianmen, so Yun Zhongtian is also considered Zhuyuan continent. However, the lifespan of people in Yunzhongtian is twice as long as that of the people in Zhuoyuan continent. They don't know the reason, but they all guess that it is probably because of Yunzhongtian. This is the reason why the Nine Heavens Shield was created. There is only one entrance to the small world, and only those who have transcended the calamity can enter. The location is surrounded by clouds and mist, so it is named Yunzhongtian. Yu Xiongluo was surprised. The lifespan of people in Yunzhongtian was actually twice as much as that of the people in Zhuoyuan mainland. Yunzhongtian was not the real Zhozhongtian, and people's lifespan was so long. How much was the lifespan of Zhozhongtian? Although the entrance to Yunzhongtian was sealed 30,000 years ago, the people inside could not come out, but they could clone themselves out. In recent years, clones with higher cultivation levels have come to try to get in from time to time. The cultivation level is above the level of transcending tribulations. You can form a clone, but the cultivation level is lower than that of the main body. It is not difficult for the people who cultivate there, even if they are of the same level, their cultivation level is higher than that of the tribulation. The people in Yuan continent are much stronger, which is the main reason why they look down on the people in Zhuoyuan continent, and it is also the reason why they have the confidence to destroy the Ji family's thoughts. He's considered a strong one. Yu Xiongluo realized that emotional Yunzhongtian was now a prison-like existence. The people inside were still unwilling to give up, and they formed clones and came out to jump around. Are you sure those people are from Yunzhongtian? How long are they? They have been sealed for 30,000 years. Is there anyone alive inside? Yuan Xiongluo asked doubtfully. The highest lifespan of a person in the 9 Yuan continent is 4,500 years of transcending tribulations. The lifespan of a Yunzhongtian is doubled to 9,000 years, which is less than 10,000 years old. Now that 30,000 years have passed, how can anyone still be alive if you can't get in or out? Gizmo shook his head. I'm sure, I can see their longevity. People in Zhuoyuan continent don't have such high longevity. They all have longevity of more than 30,000 years. Something must have happened to us inside unaware of the changes that make them so. Yu Xiongluo's heart sank. Could it be that she was really from Yunzhongtian in her previous life? After all, the man in the dream is a clone. Is it because his true body cannot come out? The heavenly gate has been sealed, so why are they jumping so hard? No matter how happy they are, they can't get to the ninth heaven, Yuan Xiongluo said speechlessly. Gizmo smiled, because they think there is a solution in the Ji family's Xuanhuan Kung Fu. Is there any? Yan Xiongluo tilted her head and looked at Gizmo and asked. Gizmo shook his head. The Ji Yin I learned is the same as yours. The implication is that I learned the Xuanhuan technique the same as you. Asking me is equivalent to asking yourself. Yan Xiongluo thought of the last 10 mysterious patterns that Ji Zhozhong had learned so hard that only the blood of the Ji family could learn. She didn't know if any of them were so powerful. She thought it was impossible. If the Ji family's mysterious patterns were really that powerful, they would not have been exterminated 30,000 years ago. Therefore, she shook her head decisively, although I have not learned all Ji Yin, I don't think so. Gizmo nodded and said, I think so too. The inner city and the outer city are in ruins, why can the imperial palace and Ji Yuan remain intact? Yan Xiongluo asked. Gizmo looked in the direction of the palace. That's because the ancestors of the Ji family would exert their spiritual power on the palace, Ji garden, and clanland before they fell into nothingness. If they wanted to damage the palace, Ji garden, and clanland, first of all the outer barrier must be broken, and the spiritual power that protects the palace, Ji garden, and clanland is even stronger than the barrier. Gizmo's tone is very confident. Yan Xiang. Luo Xing's eyes lit up. Can he still use his mental power like this? How do you exert mental power on a fixed object to protect it? Yan Xiongluo asked curiously. Gizmo glanced at her and said, human mental power is limited. Adding protection to objects requires a lot of mental power. Therefore, only powerful people who want to return to nothingness can do it, or the mental power is so strong that it can't be used up. I have never seen anyone with such strong mental power. The implication is that the powerful men of the Ji family only gave up their spiritual power before they died. No one alive dared to consume their spiritual power like this. Yan Xiangluo's beautiful big eyes blinked rapidly. She didn't know whether her own mental power was so strong that she couldn't use it up, but she had a treasure that contained a lot of mental power. If she uses these mental powers to protect the residences in Xiangyang City, will it have the same effect as the Ji family? Will it become the safest residence in Xuanhuan continent? Yan Xiangluo just thought about it in her heart and did not tell Jizimo. Jizimo saw her big and lively eyes flashing, and knew that she must have something in mind. He reminded her, "You must be obedient and don't try it. There are all kinds of medicines in this world, even if there is no regret medicine, I don't have it either. I guess that kid Zhukong doesn't have it either." Yan Xiangluo was immediately amused by his words. "You are actually such a humorous person." Jizimo shrugged, "Is it humorous? I've been quiet for too long, and I've forgotten what I used to be like." Ruan Xiangluo's words reminded him of the days when he was young, frivolous, and reckless. At that time, he was also a high-spirited young man. If Ruan Xiangluo hadn't come and been able to see and talk to him, he would have remained like a pool of stagnant water. Same, watching silently how far she and Ji Zhuzhong could go. "Tell me more about the past of the Ji family, so that I can understand what the Ninefold continent was like in the past." Yan Xiangluo put her elbows on her knees, rested her chin on her hands, and looked at her big eyes intelligently. With Jizimo. Anyway, she didn't know when Ji Zhuzhong would come out. There was very little spiritual energy here, and it wasn't a good place for cultivation. But it was a good place to listen to stories, so she took this opportunity to learn more about Xuanhuan continent. After leaving here, with her cultivation level, she might not be qualified to know these things. Although after going out, she couldn't tell others what she knew, but at least she knew it. Jizimo told Yan Xiangluo everything he knew, experienced, and saw with his own eyes. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 647. Chapter 647, Disliked Twice. Yan Xiangluo listened with great interest. The Xuanhuan continent has existed for so many years, and the Ji family has ruled the spiritual world for so many years. In addition, she has never understood the demon world. This time, Yan Xiangluo truly understands the Xuanhuan continent outside of the historical records. Also gained a comprehensive understanding of the Ji family. The two of them were like this, Jizimo said to Yan Xiangluo, and occasionally Yan Xiangluo would interject and ask questions about her doubts. 3 days had passed, and Ji Zhuzhong still hadn't come out. Jizimo has already said that. Except for the inheritance in the palace and the situation in the main hall in Ji Garden where Ji family ancestors are enshrined after his death, Yan Xiangluo also understands almost everything. There is not much spiritual energy here, so it is not suitable for cultivation. Yan Xiangluo thought that Jizimo was a member of the Ji family royal family, so his talent for Xuanhuan must be high, so she discussed Xuanhuan with him. Although Jizimo has not used Xuanhuan for more than 30,000 years, it does not mean that he does not know how to use it. Now someone finally talks to him and stays with him. Jizimo is the daughter-in-law of the Ji family who has learned the most Xuanhuan in Jiyin. He knows everything he knows and talks about it. As long as he knows what he knows, he will patiently explain it to her. Another 6 days have passed, and Yan Xiangluo's Xuanhuan strength has improved a lot. She discovered that the Ji family was indeed very talented in Xuanhuan, and finally understood why mainland Xuanhuan masters yearned for Jiyin so much. Is the Ji family's inheritance like this before? Yan Xiangluo asked, looking in the direction of the palace. Jizimo shook his head and said, "No, Several descendants from the past had to go to their clan if they wanted to accept the inheritance. The Ji family is not here, Yan Xianglou asked. I heard Jizimo mention the Ji family land before, but didn't mention the location. Although it is very big, except for the Imperial Palace and Ji Garden, it is all in ruins. You can see everything at a glance. The land of the Ji family is not here. I don't know what the continent has changed into now. I heard you said it is divided into an inner and outer continent. According to the distance, it should be in the inner continent. When Zhekong comes out, he will know where it is. The Ji family should be there too, right? Yan Xianglou asked again. Here Jizimo said with a firm tone. It is all here, how can the native Ji family be gone, but I do know when it can be this world again. Hey, I found that your Ji family is a very hard-working family, Yan Xianglou said with emotion while holding her cheeks. She heard Jizimo talk a lot about the Ji family in the past few days, and she summarized a few points. First point, the Ji family does not have many heirs, and the number of heirs in each generation is not large. This should be because the higher the cultivation level, the less likely it is to have heirs. Second point, although the Ji family stands at the highest position in the spiritual world, they have never tolerated their descendants. They focus on moral cultivation and strength. The third point is that the Ji family members are all monogamous, and no man takes concubines. Even the emperor only has one woman, the queen. Fourth point, the family has a strong sense of honor. They will not flinch in the face of family interests and safety, and no one will hesitate to pay any price. Fifth point, the Ji family will not bully the weak just because of their high status and strength. On the contrary, they are very good to their subordinates and subjects. It can also be said that during the period when the Ji family emperors ruled the spirit world, the people in the spirit world lived very happily. Sixth point, the Ji family loves innovation. He will not feel inferior because he is a member of the Ji family and does not have a high talent for Xuanhuan. Instead, he will develop his own talent field based on his own talent. In fact, the most important point is that there is only one candidate for the human emperor in each generation. This person is the only person who can accept the complete inheritance of the Ji family and has learned all the Xuanhuan techniques. Therefore, they want to be human beings. The emperor can only rely on his own efforts, and fighting is meaningless in their family, because the successor emperor must pass the test. Yan Xianglou felt that she liked the Ji family a little bit. Unfortunately, the Ji family no longer existed. It had been 30,000 years since the Ji family was sent out, and only Ji Zheshong came back. In order to achieve such a grand occasion, even if Ji Zheshong can become the human emperor again, it will be who knows how many years later. Jizimo nodded and said, "Your description is indeed accurate. This is the first time someone has described the Ji family like this. In the past, when people mentioned the Ji family, they thought the Ji family was a noble and a powerful family. There were many words of praise, but this was the first time someone described the Ji family in this way, and it was so accurate." Yan Xianglou sighed, "Can you leave here?" Jizimo's eyes darkened when he heard this and looked in the direction of the palace. Then it depends on the outcome of Zheshong's acceptance of the inheritance. Hearing this, Yan Xianglou also looked at the palace. "What will be the outcome before you can leave?" Jizimo smiled and said, "Are you pitying me?" Yan Xianglou shook her head. "Is that true? You voluntarily made sacrifices for the family. Although you are very lonely, I don't think you will regret it. As long as you don't regret anything, there is nothing pitiful. I just feel you should also go out and get to know the current 9UN continent. After all, there is nothing to protect here, and no one can enter the barrier outside." Jizimo shook his head. "You know me well. Indeed, although I have been alone for more than 30,000 years, I do not regret it, especially after seeing that a descendant of the Ji family has finally returned, although it seems that there is nothing to protect here. Yes, It's okay if the barrier is there, but I am the key to the existence of the barrier. I am there, and if I leave, the barrier will disappear. Yan Xiangluo's eyes suddenly opened wide. Gizmo couldn't leave here. Gizmo had paid more than she knew. You don't need to look at me like this. As long as you quickly build the G family empire, I will be free. Gizmo looked into Yan Xiangluo's clear eyes and said with a smile. Yan Xiangluo sighed, it's easier said than done. Gizmo said nothing more. Indeed, it is easier said than done. The current continent is not the 9UN continent 30,000 years ago. After a while, Yan Xiangluo said again, to be honest, I really don't want to be a queen, and I don't want Zhekong to be a human emperor. Look at the fate of your G family. After all your hard work, the entire family has been caught up. What's the point of ending up like this? Gizmo looked at her in surprise. You must know that in the past, women in the entire Zhuyuan continent dreamed of marrying a G family member. Although they knew that becoming a queen was too difficult, some women with good talents and good looks took a lot of effort. Wants to marry into the G family. After all, none of the men in the G family had concubines, and they only had one wife. Even so, that woman doesn't want to be the wife of the human emperor, so she can live happily even in her dream. She is so good that she actually despises the hard work of being a queen. It reminded him that when she came up, she disliked the carved pattern and was unwilling to walk. The G family was actually disliked by her twice. Both times, it was the envy of all the women in the world and they tried their best to get it. At this time, there was a noise from the direction of the palace, and Yan Xiangluo suddenly stood up and looked over. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 648. Chapter 648. Everyone is anxious. Gizmo also stood up and looked in the direction of the palace, with expectations in her eyes. Zhizhong has been in there for 9 days. He did not say that 9 days is the longest time for the G family's descendants to accept the inheritance. Only the previous emperors can do it, and Zhizhong did it. Gizmo was very excited. After waiting for 30,000 years, although only one person came back, he was the most talented person. If only back then, Zhizhong would have been the human emperor. Now he is even more looking forward to how strong the inheritance Zhizhong has received, how it will compare with previous emperors, and whether the G family can rise again in his hands. Yan Xiangluo was also very excited and asked Gizmo, is it going to end? Yes, Gizmo responded. Yan Xiangluo stood up and was about to run down, but was stopped by Gizmo, don't go there yet. Yan Xiangluo stopped immediately after hearing his words, but she had already run down several steps. She turned to look at Gizmo standing on top and asked, why? Gizmo said, after accepting the inheritance, there are other things to do. Yan Xiangluo understood that the next matter was the G family's business. It should be that the ancestors of the G family or the last emperor had left a photo of his spiritual consciousness. What should he say to Zhizhong, or what should he pass on to him? Otherwise it wouldn't have caused such a big commotion. Yang Xiang fell back to the platform. This is the highest point, and she can see the entire palace clearly. She glanced at the main hall dedicated to the ancestors of the G family. She was absolutely right. When the palace trembled, the main hall also trembled. Is it caused by Zhizhong, or do the ancestors of the G family in the hall still have spiritual consciousness? Gizmo saw her glance at the main hall behind her and asked, what's wrong? Yan Xiangluo shook her head, it's nothing. Gizmo didn't say anything. She didn't tell Gizmo how she felt. This was the territory of the G family. At best, she was Zhizhong's fiancée. She hadn't joined the family yet. She was not qualified to care about his ancestors. Withdrawing his gaze and continuing to look in the direction of the palace, Gizmo glanced at the main hall behind him without saying anything. He stood one step behind her and looked in the direction of the palace. Yan Xiongluo also discovered that Gizmo has always been one step behind her since she was able to walk the road with complicated patterns. This distance is the distance between superiority and inferiority. Why does Gizmo do this? Just because he can go this route? To be honest, she didn't really think there was anything special about this road. A while passed, and the palace was shaking more and more violently, but Zhizhong still didn't come out. Yan Xiongluo asked in a low voice, "Will the palace collapse?" Gizmo looked at her funny and said, "No, the palace was unharmed during the devastating battle 30,000 years ago. How could my descendants destroy the foundation of the Ji family?" Yan Xiongluo said reassuringly, "That's good. I also want to go in and see what's going on in the palace." Gizmo twitched the corner of her mouth. She was worried that the palace would collapse because of this. Alas, she couldn't guess what she was thinking with normal thinking. "Don't worry, you will have plenty of opportunities to see what the palace looks like in the future," Gizmo said. Zhizhong has accepted the inheritance. After passing the last level, the entire palace will be his. As his fiancée and future wife, he can see whatever he wants. After all, it will also be her home in the future. Yan Xiongluo didn't care if Gizmo's words had any other meaning. She thought that since Zhizhong had accepted the inheritance, he could naturally enter the palace. How long will it take? Yan Xiongluo's apricot eyes flashed a few times. It has been 9 days since she left the Divine Medical Mountain. She promised her sworn brother that she would contact him as soon as she left the Divine Medical Mountain. Now that it has been 9 days, her sworn brother will not think that something happened to him. Her worries are not unnecessary. At this time in the demon world, Demon King Ge Tianjun's face is extremely gloomy. He has been paying attention to the movements of Divine Medical Mountain. After the purple bamboo forest barrier of Divine Medical Mountain disappeared, he waited for Yan Xiongluo to contact him. As a result, there was no news all day long. I thought something was wrong with Yan Xiongluo, so I waited another day, but still didn't contact him. He took the initiative to contact Yan Xiongluo, but he couldn't get in touch. Where the sound transmission stone cannot be contacted. There was only one situation, which was the barrier of a powerful person. He was worried that something had happened to Yan Xiongluo, so he immediately arranged for people to look for her. However, after 7 days of searching, there was no news about Yan Xiongluo. Even people who have been to Shanai Mountain don't know that Yan Xiongluo has been there. Seeing that the people below did not dare to raise their heads, Ge Tianjun glanced at Fu Qingfeng and said, "Qingfeng, go check it out yourself. No matter what the cost, you must find the person and bring him back safely." Fu Qingfeng's eyes flashed and he immediately responded, "Yes." After leaving the demon palace, Fu Qingfeng curled up the corners of his lips. If something happened to Yan Xiongluo, it would be a good thing. He wouldn't have to worry about her influencing the Demon King. As for looking for someone, he will indeed look for it carefully. He will obey the Demon King's orders unconditionally. As for whether he can find someone, it depends on whether Yan Xiongluo is still alive. When Fu Qingfeng left the city, he saw Ge Tianyu's men hurriedly entering the city at the city gate. He knew that this man was the man Ge Tianyu sent out to arrest Yan Xiongluo. It seemed that he also returned without success. It has been 9 days since the purple bamboo forest barrier in Shanai Mountain disappeared, and the situation is likely to be in danger for Ruan Xiongluo. Fu Qingfeng was in a very good mood and went out of the city to find Yu Xiongluo in the spiritual world. At this time, Mu Zixian, Jin Yutang, and Chang Feng were also worried outside the ruins. They had no news about Yan Xiongluo. Although Mu Zixian didn't see Yan Xiongluo coming out on the Divine Doctor Mountain, he still had no news about her for so many days. He couldn't be sure that she was safe, so he was naturally worried. At first he had full confidence in Ruan Xiongluo, but after so many days without news from her, Xian began to wonder if something had happened to Ruan Xiangluo in the purple bamboo forest, and it would be fine. But they had sent out several groups of hidden guards, and there was no news about her. They didn't know how to explain to the master when he came out. "Do you think something will happen to Miss Yu?" Xian asked. Jin Yutang has always been like that, showing no emotion at all. Chang Feng was very calm. He held his long sword and said, "Girl, not everyone can be bullied. Don't worry, she will be fine." Actually, what Chang Feng wanted to say was that if she provokes Miss Yu, she will definitely not be the one in trouble. What they should worry about is the person who provokes her. At this time, there was trembling under their feet, and they immediately looked into the ruins. In fact, they could see nothing but the ruins, but they could still clearly sense that the trembling under their feet was coming from inside. Xian said, "Chang Feng, Yutang, let everyone hide immediately. Let's find a place to wait. If there is any movement inside, someone will definitely notice it, and someone will come soon." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 649. Chapter 649 I Miss You. They can't be the first to appear here, especially Xian. Anyone who knows Xuanhuan knows that he is Xuanhuan's person. If someone sees him, the person who comes will immediately know that the person inside is Xuanhuan and that he is from the Ji family. Although they knew that since the master decided to come here, he would be exposed, but the sooner he was exposed, the better. Don't you know that Qin Suiyu had already told Lu Yu that Xuanhuan was a mysterious pattern master, but Qin Suiyu didn't know that Xuanhuan's mysterious pattern technique was called Jiyin. After all, Xuanhuan would not tell others such an important thing. Therefore, Lu Yu did not know that Xuanhuan was a descendant of the Ji family at that time. Now Lu Yu connected these things together and guessed that even if he wasn't, he would still let him be. How could he let go of such a good opportunity to get rid of Xuanhuan? At the same time, Yu Ji, now called Wei Changjiao, after learning about the Ji family land, he immediately thought of Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan must have gone in. He was a little annoyed as to why he had forgotten such important information. If it had been earlier thinking about it, if the news spreads, Xuanhuan may not have a chance to go to the Ji family land. But it's not too late now. There should be many people who want to get rid of him. There is still a chance before he grows up. He immediately spread the news that Xuanhuan was a descendant of the Ji family and that he had practiced Jiyin. Of course, he did not use his own identity. After all, he was also a bodyguard for Xuanhuan. He was not simple in talent and mind, but he still knew what to do to avoid getting himself involved in this matter. Otherwise, if someone asks him how he knows, what will he say? Wei Changjiao was extremely depressed during this period. After he learned about Qin Suiyu, he looked for opportunities to get close to her. He finally found her in Yaoguang City. He used his current status to contact her, but she disappeared the next day. No one can be found anymore. After the soul was stabilized by Yan Xiangluo, he had completely integrated with his body, but there was little progress in his cultivation. He was not as talented as the original owner. His father gave him a lot of cultivation resources, but there was no progress. People in the sect were secretly talking about him. He wanted to go out for a walk. It happened that his father arranged for someone to visit the Ji family, so he told his father that he wanted to go with him. His father still loved him very much. Knowing that he was in a bad mood recently, he asked him to go with the person who arranged it. He wanted to take this opportunity to find Qin Suiyu again. With the efforts of Wei Changjiao and Lu Yu, in less than half a day, the entire continent knew that Xuanhuan, the first place winner in the continental competition, was a descendant of the Ji family of the Xuanhuan family. At the same time, various forces across the mainland have learned about the Ji family land and have arranged for people to go there. Naturally, the people who can be arranged to go are those who are not weak in strength and have a high status among the various forces. Suddenly, less than 10 days after the Divine Doctor Mountain had been quiet, the land of the Ji family became lively again. People in the mainland were talking about how this year was really an eventful year. One thing followed another, and things that had happened in tens of thousands of years were rushed. There is some movement this year. Standing on the platform, Xianxia could not only see the palace but also the outside of the ruins. Although it was already dark, the darkness with her current cultivation level could not affect her sight. She could see the people outside clearly. Clearly. So many people came in just a short time. Gizmo naturally saw the people outside. It had not been so lively for a long time. Gizmo glanced at the people outside and ignored them. His eyes fell on the palace, waiting for Xuanhuan to come out. The shaking lasted for about an hour and then stopped. Gizmo said, "You can get over it this time." As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia ran away. Her fiery red figure looked like a ball of fire or a gorgeous flower in the night sky. He ran out of Ji garden and rushed towards the palace gate. Gizmo has not seen such a vivid person for a long time. There once was such a vivid woman in his life, and then she lived in his heart, and then until now, her appearance has been blurred. Now, suddenly seemed to remember her again. Gizmo took a deep breath and followed Xianxia. He hasn't entered the imperial palace for 30,000 years. Xianxia ran to the palace gate, and happened to see the palace door open. As the palace door opened, Xuanhuan, wearing a snow-white brocade robe embroidered with silver dark patterns, walked out slowly. For a moment, Xianxia seemed to see Xuanhuan walking slowly like that when they first met him again, but now he was more steady and his aura was stronger. As soon as the palace door opened, Xuanhuan saw the fiery red figure outside the palace door, Luoluo. Xuanhuan was stunned. Why is Luoluo here? How did she get in? But the joy was greater than the surprise. A gentle smile instantly bloomed on Xuanhuan's face, and he quickly walked over, hugged Xianxia into his arms, rubbed his face on her hair, and talked with the coquettish girl. Like a big cat. Luoluo, I miss you. Why is he so excited? Xianxia didn't have time to think too much. When she saw Gizmo standing aside and looking at them teasingly, she quickly pushed Xuanhuan and said, "There are still people here." Xuanhuan was stunned. Is there anyone else here besides the two of them? Doesn't it mean that no one except for the blood of the Ji family can come in? Just let Luoluo come in. After all, she is the person she recognizes, and she has also learned the Ji family Xuanhuan Kung Fu Ji seal. It makes sense that she can come in. If someone else can come in, something is wrong, right? Could it be that what the human emperor said to him inside just now was false? After Xianxia finished speaking, she realized that Xuanhuan could not see Gizmo. Hurry to explain, it's not a human being, it's a soul body, a member of your Ji family. Xuanhuan's phoenix eyes flashed with clarity. He was not surprised by the soul body. He put his arms around Xianxia's waist and said to her, "Luoluo, open your heavenly eyes for me." Xianxia raised her hand and touched his eyebrows with the power of soul control, and Xuanhuan saw Gizmo leaning against the palace door. Both of them were sizing each other up. Gizmo was shocked that Xianxia opened the heavenly eyes for Xuanhuan so easily. Is she really only 16 years old? It is normal to know that a heavenly master can open the heavenly eyes for herself. But to open the eyes of others, the strength requirements are different. She was so relaxed and just raised her hand to open Xuanhuan's eyes. Xuanhuan didn't feel any surprise at all. He was obviously used to it. It's not like he has never seen a celestial master. In the past, the Ji family was a royal family in the spiritual world, and there were celestial masters in the palace. How strong is Yan Xiangluo's heavenly master talent? Ji Zhong looked at Jizimo and said, "Are you the Jizimo the human emperor mentioned?" Jizimo nodded, "It's me." Yan Xiangluo knew it clearly. Sure enough, Ji Zhong, who had received the inheritance, saw the human emperor. When the palace trembled, it must be that the human emperor had passed on something to him again. How else would he know Jizimo's name? End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 650. Chapter 650 Sapphire Token. Ji Zhong took out a sapphire token. When Jizimo saw the token, he immediately saluted Ji Zhong solemnly, "Zimo has met the human emperor." Yan Xiangluo was extremely surprised. Jizimo was also a member of the Ji family. Although a person from 30,000 years ago was now in a soul body, he could still be considered an ancestor of the Ji family. Not only did Ji Zhong call him by his first name, Jizimo also called him by his first name. What's the reason for giving him such a solemn gift? Human emperor? No one on the mainland now knows that the mainland has a name, let alone that the spiritual world of the mainland was once ruled by a human emperor. What's the point of calling Ji Zhong the human emperor? Yan Xiangluo glanced at the token in Ji Zhong's hand. The sapphire glowed with a cold light. Facing the outside, there was a carving of a soaring phoenix with auspicious clouds below. The soaring phoenix surrounded the word phoenix. Just looking at this word makes me feel quite stressed. Her mental power and consciousness are so powerful, and she feels that this sapphire token must not be carved from pure sapphire. She was a little curious about what was on the back of the token. "Let's go to the tribe's territory later," Ji Zhong said to Jizimo. Jizimo was stunned for a moment and then said immediately, "Yes." Ji Zhong put away the token, took out another similar sapphire token, and handed it to the person in his arms. "This one is Luoluo." Yan Xiangluo glanced at the token. This token was engraved with a soaring phoenix, and the flying phoenix surrounded the word phoenix. Hingran's eyes narrowed. She naturally understood what the token represented, but she hadn't married him yet. Was it too early to give her the token? Although Ji Zhong is the only one in the Ji family now, it does not mean that he will not become stronger again in the future, but it is not easy to rule the spiritual world again. However, even if Ji Zhong is not from the Ji family here, he cannot be the human emperor, nor is he an ordinary person. Ji Zhong gave it to him, and it would be pretentious for her to refuse, so she naturally took it. Ji Zhong immediately laughed. Luoluo happily accepted the token representing his wife's identity, which meant that she was not opposed to marrying him. How could he be unhappy? Yan Xiangluo turned over her token and saw that the back was bare. Why was there nothing? Such a beautiful token, doesn't it only have a pattern on one side? Ji Zhong lowered his head and said in a gentle tone, "After you shed blood to identify the owner, a pattern will appear on the back." Yan Xiangluo raised her eyes and glanced at him. "Do you recognize your master?" Ji Zhidian nodded, took out his token again, turned it over and showed it to her. Yan Xiangluo looked over, narrowed her eyes, and looked at Ji Zhong again. "Why is this pattern?" Ji Zhong said, "I'm also surprised. Behind the token is the evergreen tree of the 9 heavens. How do they know that?" "Because the pattern behind it is the painting they got in Xiangyang city. It is exactly the same, without any difference, except that one is painted and the other is. When carved, the pattern behind the token is more three-dimensional." Yan Xiangluo glanced at the token in her hand. She wanted to know what the pattern on the back of her piece was. Immediately took out a silver needle and pricked the tip of her index finger, and dropped a drop of blood on it. The token flashed with light, and Yan Xiangluo noticed the connection between her consciousness and the token. Then she quickly turned it over and saw that there was indeed a pattern behind the token. It was also a painting, but it was a strange place. But it can be seen that it should be related to the pattern behind Zhizhong's token, because it is also the same man and woman in the painting, but the scene is different, holding hands and flying forward in the air. They have never seen the picture behind it. Of Yan Xianglue was speechless. Your ancestors came from Zhikongtian, right? Zhizhong raised his head and looked at Gizmo. Really? Gizmo shook his head. I don't know, I haven't heard of it. Do you know the meaning of the painting on the back? Zhizhong asked again. Gizmo shook his head. I don't know. This token was left by the first human emperor. It was refined by the emperor himself when he got married. He and his wife were together. After they fell into nothingness, this token has become a token of the emperor and queen of the Ji family, representing the identity of the emperor and queen, and has been passed down from generation to generation. He also just knew that the painting above was actually related to Zhizongtian. Zhizhong and Yan Xianglue didn't say anything in detail and he didn't ask. Yan Xianglue was speechless. In her opinion, in the world of imperial power, shouldn't a dragon and a phoenix represent the identity of the emperor and empress? Why are the emperor and empress tokens engraved with phoenix and phoenix? Besides, the mainland doesn't recognize any emperor or empress now, so this token can only be used as a family heirloom for their children. Yan Xianglue and Zhizhong looked at each other. Zhizhong said calmly, we will know one day. Let's go to the Ji family first. Hearing this, Yan Xianglue said a little worriedly, I'm afraid I can't go, right? Zhizhong said, Luoluo can come here, why can't he go to the Ji family's clan? Yan Xianglue said in a daze, I came here because Master Shi sent me here. I don't have the ability to come in myself. Zhizhong was stunned. Master Shi left his spiritual consciousness so powerful. Although Master Shi was a figure after the fall of the Ji family, he was famous for his medical skills and alchemy skills on the mainland. He really didn't expect that Master Shi's consciousness would still be so powerful after 10,000 years. You must know that the Ji family is not a place where powerful people can come in. Even people who have survived the calamity cannot come in. Otherwise, they would not have existed until now, waiting for him to come. Master Shi has the highest level of cultivation, which is the peak of transcending tribulations. How did he do it? Yan Xianglue shrugged and said matter-of-factly, I saw Master Shi taking a picture with his spiritual consciousness. Finally, he asked me where I was going and wanted to send me away, otherwise the people from Divine Doctor Mountain could dismantle me, so I said if I want to come to the Ji family land, I know that only the Ji family blood can come here, so I meant outside the Ji family land, but I didn't expect him to send me indirectly. Zhizhong looked at Gizmo. Gizmo knew what he meant without saying anything. Gizmo could only explain, it's not that the person you said has strong spiritual consciousness, but that she practiced Jiyin and was anyone recognized by the Ji family can naturally come in. Yan Xianglue suddenly realized. No wonder Gizmo never asked her how she came in. It turned out that when he saw her, he sensed the mysterious aura on her body and knew the reason why he could come in. Zhizhong smiled, in that case, the Ji family should be able to go to Luoluo. Gizmo shook his head and said, not sure. You can only find out if you go there. Zhizhong and Yan Xianglue both looked at him, wondering if the land of the Ji family was more mysterious than here. Gizmo waved his hands and said, I really don't know. The reason why I say this is because no woman from the Ji family has ever entered, not even the girls from the Ji family, let alone the daughter-in-law. End of this chapter.